Hi, this is Joel Addis, and this is my presentation for EDL 852 Module 10, helping students realize their learning norms. So schools have high expectations for students, and they also establish norms that clarify students' expected behaviors. But it's also critical that schools address the students' needs to have established norms for educational practice. So there are 10 norms that can enhance student success in the learning environment. The first one is relationships. And for students, the question is, how do I know that I am important to my teachers? And really, this norm begins in the classroom. The norm should be that all educators are intentional as they develop relationships with students in their classes. It is critical that this also includes those teachers who do not have students in their class all day long. This should be, and so many of these norms should be reflected in a vision and mission statement of a school. And in practice, this can be accomplished by teachers holding individualized conferences with students on a routine basis, as well as utilizing structured morning meetings to build relationships in a class. Relevance. The student question for this is, how will students' learning be connected to the world outside the school and their future plans? I believe this starts at a curricular level, and the norm should be that all content areas have components connecting what is being taught in the classroom to real-world experiences. Again, like so many of these, they can be reflected in either the vision statement of the school, the mission statement of the school, or both. In practice, this could be accomplished by grade level teams collaborating to develop those lessons if they're not embedded in the curriculum, and if then using whatever lessons are available with fidelity. The next is time. And there are several of these that are kind of difficult to have structured throughout a school day, because we all know a school day follows a schedule. And at that point, it can be difficult to let students solely learn at their own pace. However, it can be applied to small group and independent work times. Students have the chance to work their own pace in those segments of the day, while other students are getting that direct instruction from a teacher. In practice, this can be accomplished through utilizing a class structure that enables this. And a couple that I have experienced in schools that I've taught in were the daily 5 structure for reading and then a daily 3 structure for math, which had direct instruction components, individualized independent work time, but then also tiered small groups. And that's something that will be stated again in a little bit. So then the other thing is timing, and can students work in a sequence that works best for them? And really, how this would be reinforced and how this could be realized for students looks the same way for time. It's utilizing a structure that allows a sequence that is preferable to students be utilized in those specific work times. Another important piece is play. And the question is, are there times where I will be able to explore through age-appropriate play? And I really thought about this in terms of structured activities that could be realized as part of learning, in addition to just that free recess time that we know that all students need. Again, it begins in the classroom. The norm needs to be set that hands-on learning activities are embedded within daily content. In practice, this can be provided through using hands-on STEM-related activities. I think specifically of Project Lead the Way, which is done in my building, as well as incorporating physical manipulatives. And I specifically thought of math because that's kind of an easy one to make that connection. Then also providing structured activities at scheduled recesses, and that would provide chances for students to practice their soft skills. But then really, I also think of specials times and things like PE and music and art and even technology, when kids can really get in and use their hands and explore in physical ways. The next component is practice. And the student question is, will there be opportunities to practice what I have learned? And again, this norm begins in classrooms. Lessons should always include an opportunity to practice what has been taught. It can be accomplished through utilizing a class structure that encourages those specific things, that direct instruction, tiered small group, and then individualized independent work. Teachers should be encouraged to follow an instructional model where they show the content, model the content, and then students have an opportunity to practice it while getting help if needed. And then finally, it's important that projects can be embedded into learning that allow kids a chance to practice. The next piece is choice. And students' question it would be, do I have choices in how I demonstrate what I've learned? Again, this is one that's a little difficult, I think, to spread amongst an entire school day when you're using a standard curriculum. But it can be applied to small group and independent work times. Students can have a choice on what tasks they pursue. Excuse me. It can also be accomplished by utilizing projects where students have the freedom to share their work project. I'm specifically thinking, I co-taught with a fourth grade teacher several years ago, and she would do a biography project in February for Black History Month. And she would allow students an opportunity to pick the way that they presented that. My son, when he was in fifth grade, did robotics projects as part of his enrichment group. And they were given a chance to, did they want to do a presentation? Did they want to write a paper? Did they want to create a play? I think these are some things and opportunities where these skills and choice can be included in instruction. The next part is authenticity. And that question is, how will the community value the importance of my work? And I think this can begin at the school level by inviting community members in when students are in session, following, of course, district guidelines, and allowing them an opportunity to present themselves to students. These speakers can highlight the value of the work students are doing in the community. Another thing that I think is critical is to give students a chance to provide assistance to the community through service projects. Challenge. This is a big thing for me in my former role as a special education teacher, because I truly believe it begins in the classrooms. There's a norm that should be set that all educators individualize learning for their students, and this can be done with the support of interventionists. I strongly believe this should be reflected in the mission statement of the school. And in practice, it can be accomplished through tiered learning groups, enrichment groups. In a general education, like Tier 1 classroom, teachers can still scaffold their instruction and teach in small groups. Gifted services and special education services are also a component for this. And I think it's pretty important to remember that when we're talking about answering the question, is my learning going to challenge me? It really is an individual question, because what's difficult for one student will not be difficult for another. The next is applying. How is my learning going to be applied? And this kind of goes back, I believe, to the relevance piece, and just making sure that all content areas have components connecting what's being taught in the classroom to real world experiences. And I'm going to go back to math and just remembering that the math curriculums that are being used in my district have had problems related to that. It's not just finding area. There's a word component piece saying, okay, you're wanting to build a fence around your yard. For calculating volume or working with fractions, sometimes a cooking related question is included. And so by doing that, teachers are embedding, or curriculum and teachers are embedding application level problems into daily skill practice. This is also an area where I believe project-based learning can come into play, just as using those components as part of your daily instruction, but also just specially designed units around that concept. So when we look at these 10 norms, they really should be equally valued as the norms that teachers set, educators set for student behavior. They should also be made public to all educational stakeholders, and they should be considered as each school evaluates its own effectiveness. I think so often schools look at their effectiveness in terms of student academic achievement and how much growth they've made in different content areas. But I really do feel that by incorporating these 10 norms into student learning and educator practice, it really provides an opportunity for students to develop their soft skills. And that's such a critical component of what students should be learning in school today. Only one reference for this presentation, and then standard correlation, relevant, reflection, and I will also be including these in my post. Thank you for reviewing this.